It was never supposed to be me. I wasn't even scheduled that night. But when Mia texted last minute to cover her shift at the private ER, I sighed, threw on my scrubs, and told myself it was just another night, just another patient. I had no idea I was walking into the kind of story that only exists in movies, the kind that ruins and remakes lives in the same breath. It was past midnight when they wheeled him in. Blood soaked through his shirt. His pulse was thready. His face, beautiful in a haunting, distant sort of way, like a sculpture cracked dew. Male, late 20s, GSW to the shoulder, BP dropping fast, no ID, no escort. I stepped in before the other nurses could react. I've got him. No one argued. I had a reputation for staying calm in chaos. And something about the way this man clung to consciousness, like he refused to die, made my hands steady even when my heart wasn't. He grabbed my wrist as I leaned in. His voice was hoarse, lips bloodied. "Don't. Call the cops." I froze. He passed out before I could answer. I worked on him for nearly 2 hours, sutured the wound, managed the bleeding, watched his vitals like a hawk. Not once did I leave the room. Something in my gut told me this wasn't just some gang incident or random bar fight, and I was right. The moment I stepped into the staff locker room to wash the blood off my hands, a man in a dark suit approached me. No ID, no expression. "The one you saved, you didn't see him. You didn't treat him. You never spoke to him. Understood?" I narrowed my eyes. "You threatening me?" He didn't blink. "We're protecting you." Then he handed me a white envelope and walked out. Inside, cash, a lot of it, no name. I didn't take the money. I never do. But I never told anyone either. 3 days later, he showed up. At the clinic where I worked mornings. Except this time, he wasn't bleeding. He was in a custom black suit, a Rolex glinting on his wrist, his raven black hair perfectly styled, like the bleeding stranger never existed. But those same eyes, sharp, cold, unreadable, locked on me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. "You're Lina Tran." It wasn't a question. "I am," I said, confused. "Can I help you?" He smiled. It was terrifying. "You already did." Before I could speak, he handed me a card. Ryu Nakamura, CEO, Nakamura Corp. I blinked. That name, it was everywhere. Billionaire, tech mogul, ruthless, untouchable. He shouldn't have known me, but he did. "You saved my life. Now I intend to return the favor." I should have walked away, should have said no, but something in his voice, that quiet, commanding tone, made me freeze. And in that moment, my simple life of part-time shifts and forgotten dreams ended. Because Ryu Nakamura didn't offer favors, he owned them. And now, I belong to him. I wasn't sure what I expected when I walked into Nakamura Corp, but it wasn't this. A glass tower piercing the clouds, walls of obsidian and chrome, people in tailored suits walking like their time was more expensive than gold. I stood at the front desk in my modest blouse and worn ballet flats, already regretting my decision. "Miss Lina Tran, he's expecting you." The receptionist smiled politely, but something in her eyes said, "You don't belong here." She wasn't wrong. I was led into a private elevator with mirrored walls and no buttons, just a soft chime as it rose, fast, smooth, silent. My heart pounded in my throat. What am I doing here? When the doors opened, it wasn't to a floor, it was to a throne. His office took up the entire top level, dark wood, minimalist, cold. Ryu Nakamura stood with his back to the window, Tokyo's skyline glittering behind him like a warning. Lina. The way he said my name, like it was already his. He motioned to the chair across from his desk. I sat carefully, trying to keep my hands from trembling. He studied me, slow, controlled, like he was cataloging every breath I took. "You didn't take the money." "No," I said quietly. "I don't save people for profit." He nodded once. "That's why you're here." He slid a file across the table. "I did some digging. You're working 2 jobs. You dropped out of med school. No parents, no debt, no boyfriend, no legal ties, no noise." My stomach twisted. I looked because I need to know who I'm about to hire. My eyes widened. "Hire? You'll be my private medical advisor. On call, exclusive." I blinked. "That's not necessary." "It is, because I don't like debts, and I don't leave loose ends." I stood up. "Mr. Nakamura, with all due respect, I didn't save your life to trap myself in yours." He didn't move, just said, "I wasn't offering, I was informing." My blood ran cold. "You've already stepped into my world, Lina. Now you either learn the rules or get swallowed by them." I should have left. But then he said something that stopped me cold. "Someone tried to kill me that night. The bullet wasn't random." My breath caught. "They were aiming for my head. I moved at the last second. If you hadn't been the one on shift, I'd be dead." He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment, I saw it. Fear. Buried so deep it barely surfaced, but it was real. If they find out I'm alive, they'll try again, and they'll come through anyone near me. He stepped closer. "You saved me. That makes you a liability. Or a protected asset." His voice dropped. "I've decided on the latter." That night, I walked out of the tower with a contract in my hand, and a question I couldn't shake. What happens to someone when the most powerful man in Asia becomes obsessed with keeping her safe? The answer, I feared, was something I wasn't ready for. The first rule, don't be late. I wasn't. I arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, heart thudding like a warning bell in my chest. A sleek black car had picked me up outside my tiny apartment. No license plate, no driver's name, just tinted glass and eerie silence. The interior smelled like leather and control. When I reached the top floor, Ryu Nakamura was already waiting. He was dressed in a slate gray 3-piece suit, not a single wrinkle in sight. His tie matched the color of his eyes, ice that could cut. He didn't greet me, just motioned to the corner of the office where a private medical suite had been installed overnight. "Everything you need is there. Equipment, files, security access." I blinked. This wasn't here yesterday. No, but when I decide something, it becomes reality. He looked at me. "You'll learn that." The second rule, don't ask questions. I broke it within the first hour. "What exactly do you need me to do?" He didn't look up from his laptop. "Keep me alive." That's vague. He finally raised his eyes, slow and deliberate. "You'll monitor my vitals, run blood work weekly, and report anything unusual. You'll have full access to my health history. No one else does." I swallowed. "Why me?" He leaned forward, hands clasped together. "Because you're not afraid of blood or power. You looked me in the eye when I was bleeding out, and you didn't flinch. That matters." His gaze darkened. "And because I trust no one else." The third rule, stay close. Too close. By noon, I realized I wasn't just a medical consultant. I was a shadow. Everywhere Ryu went, I followed. Boardrooms, car rides, even a private meeting in a marble-floored hotel lounge with men who looked like they hadn't smiled since the Cold War. He never introduced me. He never explained. But his hand would rest lightly on the small of my back when we entered a room, just enough for people to wonder. And when I moved too far from him, his eyes would find me again like a command. At 9:37 p.m., we returned to the office. The floor was empty, silent. I turned to leave, exhausted. "You'll stay in the apartment upstairs," he said. I blinked. "I have a home." "Not anymore." My voice sharpened. "You don't own me." He stepped closer, inches away. "No, but I do protect what's mine." His voice dropped to a murmur. And in this world, Lina, protection is more binding than ownership. I didn't respond. I couldn't. He opened a sleek black folder and handed it to me. Inside, a key card, an access schedule, my name in gold. The top floor is secured. You'll be safe there. No cameras, no one gets in without my code. I looked up at him. Why are you doing this? He met my eyes without blinking. Because the night you saved me, something changed. You weren't afraid of dying with me. That makes you the only person I'm not afraid of losing. That night, I lay awake in a king-sized bed in a penthouse wrapped in silence. Every comfort was there. Heated floors, touchscreen panels, a window that overlooked the city like a god watching mortals. But all I felt was the weight of invisible chains, and the question burned in my mind. What happens when a man like Ryu Nakamura decides you're his only weakness? The answer whispered back in his voice. He never lets you go. It was supposed to be safe. That's what he said. No one gets in without my code. But at 2:41 a.m., I knew someone had. It was the smallest sound, a breath too close, a soft shuffle on the marble floor outside my bedroom. I sat up. The lights were off. The city buzzed quietly beyond the glass, but inside there was only my heartbeat and the impossible sound of another presence. I reached for the lamp. Nothing. Power dead. Then the door creaked. I didn't scream. I moved silently to the edge of the bed, grabbed the heavy tablet from the nightstand, and stood against the wall, listening. Footsteps. 2 of them. Slow. Measured. They weren't trying to steal. They weren't searching for anything. They were watching. The door opened. I raised the tablet. But before I could swing, the entire room lit up like the sun exploded. Lina! His voice cut through the air like a whip. Ryu Nakamura stormed in, his men flanking behind. Suits, guns, blood on one of their sleeves. My hand was still raised, my body frozen. His eyes scanned me once, then landed on the man behind the door, masked, caught in a blur of light and shadows, before 2 security officers tackled him to the floor. Screams, silence. Ryu crossed the room and pulled me behind him. I told you no one would touch you. His hands were trembling. He never trembled. 20 minutes later, I sat on the edge of the same bed. The power was back. The lights were soft. My world was a blur of questions. Ryu stood across the room, blood on the cuff of his white shirt, eyes burning. He was one of ours, a plant. I should have known. Who was he? Someone who wanted to remind me I'm not invincible. He looked at me then, but it wasn't his usual controlled stare. It was something deeper, raw. You were almost hurt. In my home, in my space. And I will never forgive myself for that. I swallowed. You can't control everything, but I can control this. He walked toward me, sat beside me. The distance between us was too close again, like always. From now on, you don't leave the penthouse without me. That's not a request. I flinched. He caught it. His voice softened, almost tender. Lina, I don't know how to explain this. You weren't supposed to matter. You were just supposed to disappear. But every time I look at you, I remember the moment I came back from death, and the person I came back for. His hand hovered near mine. You don't realize it yet, but you're already the most dangerous thing in my life. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the intruder, but because Ryu sat outside my room in a chair all night, arms crossed, back straight, his silhouette outlined against the city lights, like a king standing guard over the only thing he couldn't replace, me. And somewhere in that fragile darkness, a terrifying truth dawned. I wasn't just part of his world now. I was the reason he was willing to destroy it. The next morning, he handed me a passport. We leave in 2 hours. Pack light. I blinked. We? He didn't answer. Inside the passport, my name, my photo, and a Japanese visa I didn't apply for. Lina Tran, Private Medical Liaison, Nakamura Corp. I stared at the seal. This wasn't protection. This was possession, printed in ink. The jet was silent, sleek, monochrome, like him. I took my seat across from Ryu in the wide cabin lined with matte leather and chrome. An assistant handed me water. Another poured him whiskey. No words passed between us for the first 30 minutes. I watched clouds, he read files. But I could feel his gaze on me, always. Finally, I broke the silence. Why Hong Kong? A meeting. With? Someone who thinks I'm still dead. My chest tightened. So it's a trap? He didn't deny it. That's why you're here. As bait? As anchor. His eyes met mine. You're the only reason I came back. Somewhere over the East China Sea, turbulence shook the cabin. I gasped and gripped the armrest. His voice was calm but firm. Come here. I hesitated. Lina, sit next to me. I stood, moved across the cabin, sat by him. He didn't touch me, just leaned slightly closer. I hate turbulence, I whispered. I know. How? I know a lot of things about you. He pulled something from his inner jacket, a folded photo. Of me. Taken from afar. I was laughing, carrying groceries. This was the day before I got shot. I stared at the photo. Why do you have this? He looked straight ahead. Because I saw you before you saw me. You were already part of my life. My voice dropped. You had me watched? I protected you before you even knew you needed it. The jet landed after sunset. The city of Hong Kong glittered below like shattered glass. We stepped off the plane to a fleet of black cars and silent men in suits. I felt like I was walking into a war. In a way, I was. Except I wasn't sure who the enemy was anymore. Was it the man who tried to kill Ryu? Or was it Ryu himself? Cold, brilliant, and so terrifyingly constant in his obsession with me. That night, I stood on the balcony of our hotel suite. 5-star, private, impossibly high above the world. Ryu joined me silently, a glass in his hand. Do you regret saving me? The wind caught my hair. I didn't answer. He stepped closer. Because I don't. I regret not finding you sooner. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. And then, just once, he touched my hand. Not like a CEO marking territory. Not like a man who owned anything. Just a human, trying not to lose what felt real. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. Because, deep down, I knew. This man wasn't in love with me. He was addicted to the idea of me. The girl who saved him, the only one who made him bleed and survive. And I wasn't sure if I was falling for him, or just falling. The meeting was held in a skyscraper wrapped in smoked glass, towering over Hong Kong's harbor like a black dagger. Ryu wore a midnight blue suit that matched the storm in his eyes. I wore the dress his assistant laid out, simple, high-necked, with a subtle slit. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror, but maybe that was the point. Lina Tran, not the nurse anymore. I was someone else now. Someone walking into a room where lives were bargained and ended over coffee. Inside the boardroom, the air was ice. A man stood at the far end. Gray hair, expensive watch, snake eyes. He smiled when he saw Ryu. Still alive. What a shame. I stiffened. Ryu's tone was pleasant. Too pleasant. Your assassin missed. That's on you. I thought you didn't believe in revenge, Nakamura. I believe in loose ends. You're one. The man looked at me then, his smile sharpened. So, this is the girl? The reason you crawled back from hell? I felt Ryu's fingers twitch beside mine. a silent tremor of rage. "Say her name again," he said softly, "and I'll paint this room in yours." It wasn't business. This was war, and I was the leverage. "Let me guess," the man drawled. "She doesn't know yet what you really are, why they wanted you dead." He looked at me. "Tell me, Lina, has he told you how many people died the day he built his first fortune? The silence he bought with blood?" Ryu's voice cut clean. "Enough." I turned. "Is it true?" Ryu didn't answer, not right away, but something in his eyes fractured. "You didn't save a good man, Lina. You saved one who still has blood on his hands." We left in silence. The city blurred past the car window like a lie unraveling. I finally spoke. How much of what he said was true? "Enough," he murmured. "And the rest?" He looked out the window. "The rest you'll have to learn the hard way." That night, I stood in the hotel bathroom, staring at my reflection. Who was I becoming? A nurse turned shadow in a billionaire's revenge war? Or a woman who, despite everything, felt something every time he touched her? I stepped out of the bathroom and found him standing at the balcony, alone, shirt sleeves rolled, tie loosened. He didn't look at me. I was 22 when I learned the world doesn't reward kindness, so I stopped being kind. The bullet wasn't a warning, Lina. It was the end I was supposed to get. He turned. "Until you. You didn't save my life, you reset it. And now I'm building something new around you." He walked closer, too close. His voice was rough with something unspoken. "I won't ask you to stay. But if you leave, they'll find you, and I won't be there next time." I didn't answer. I didn't know how, because deep down, I wasn't afraid of the men who wanted to kill him. I was afraid of the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing in his world worth saving, and he would burn everything else down to protect it. Back in Tokyo, everything felt colder. Not just the air, the silence. The way Ryu no longer stood in the hallway outside my door every night, but somehow I still felt him there, watching, waiting. The lines between protection and surveillance blurred fast in his world. I asked for space. He gave me a floor, the entire 48th level of Nakamura Tower. Private keycard, no cameras, my own schedule. "You said you didn't want to be watched," he said quietly. "So I'm not watching, but I'm listening." Whatever that meant. Days passed. I focused on work, vitals, reports, long meetings where people avoided eye contact, knowing I was his. I started wearing neutral colors, low heels, no perfume. Anything to feel invisible again. But I wasn't. Not with him. One morning, I arrived at the office to find a package. No note, no name. Inside, a file. Photos. My apartment, my building, me. Taken from across the street, through windows. There were timestamps, locations, maps, and one phrase printed across the first page. "She dies if he lives." I dropped the file. My hands shook. I went straight to he was on a call. I didn't wait. "Is this your idea of a threat? Of control?" He stood. "What happened?" I slammed the file down. "You tell me. You're the one with 1,000,000 cameras and a personal army." His eyes scanned the photos. Not shocked, not confused, just quiet. "I tightened security 3 days ago. They still got this close. You said I was safe. You were. Now you're not. Because of you." He looked at me then, and it wasn't anger. It was something worse. Guilt. That night, he showed up unannounced at my floor. No suit, no driver, no security. Just Ryu. In a hoodie, hands in his pockets, rain on his hair. Let me in. I almost didn't. But I did, because no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't look away from him. You said I changed something in you, I said. But what if you changed something in me too? He walked past me, stopped in the center of the room. I want you to understand something, Lina. I don't protect you out of guilt. I protect you because I don't know what I become if I lose you. And whatever that version of me is, you shouldn't meet him. His voice shook. And for the first time since we met, I believed he was more afraid of himself than anyone trying to kill him. He moved to leave, but at the door, he turned back. You can hate me tomorrow, but tonight, just let me know you're breathing. I didn't speak, but I didn't shut the door either. The envelope was plain. No name, no return address. Slipped under my door sometime between 3 and 3:15 a.m., because that's when I got up for water and it wasn't there before. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed, clean, untraceable. You're looking at the wrong man. If you want the truth, go to the address below. Ask for Katsuro. Below that, coordinates. A warehouse near the edge of Tokyo Bay. Derelict, quiet, off the grid. I stared at it for hours. By dawn, I was outside the building, alone. No driver, no Ryu, just me in jeans and a sweatshirt. If this was a trap, I'd walked right into it. But I had to know. I had to know if the man who haunted my dreams was the villain the world warned me about, or the one person who'd been telling the truth all along. The door creaked open. Dust, silence, shadows. Then, a figure stepped forward. Katsuro. Early 60s, sharp eyes, worn suit. The look of someone who'd seen power and walked away from it. You're the girl, he said softly. The one he's trying to protect. From what? He didn't answer, just pointed to a chair. I sat. He placed a folder on the table. Inside, photos, ledgers, contracts. A network of names, transfers, orders, including the hit order on Ryu Nakamura. But the signature wasn't his. It was someone else's. Jiro Tanaka, a board member, longtime family ally, the one who'd mentored Ryu in his teens, the one who stood beside him during every company milestone. I felt the ground shift under my feet. Why would he want Ryu dead? I asked. Katsuro's voice was dry. Because Ryu became stronger than him, quieter, colder, smarter. And because monsters don't like being out-monstered. When I left, my hands were shaking. I didn't text Ryu, I didn't call. I went straight to Nakamura Tower, walked past security, took the elevator to the penthouse. He wasn't there. I waited. When he arrived, disheveled, eyes dark from no sleep, he froze at the sight of me. You went to the docks, he said. It wasn't a question. I held up the file. Why didn't you tell me about Jiro? He exhaled, sat down slowly. Because you still look at me like I might be worth saving, and I didn't want to lose that. Not yet. I sat across from him. No walls this time, no rules. Do you want revenge? No, he said. I want it to stop. The threats, the silence, the weight. But I don't know how to put the gun down when I've held it this long. I reached across the table, placed my hand on his. His breath hitched. And for the first time, I felt him let go of something. Not control, but fear. The fear that if I knew everything, I'd run. And the realization that now I wouldn't. The Nakamura Corp boardroom felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way everyone looked at me, like I was a secret Ryu had dared to bring into the open. He stood at the head of the long black table, his expression unreadable, a stack of files in front of him like weapons. His suit was darker than usual, his jaw tighter. I sat 2 seats behind, not as a guest, but as a witness, because today he wasn't negotiating, he was going to war. We'll begin, Ryu said smoothly. His voice carried like a blade across velvet. He clicked the remote. A screen behind him lit up with numbers, names, transactions, Every single one tracing back to one man, Jiro Tanaka. For over a year, there have been siphons from R&D budgets, offshore leaks, misused accounts. None of this was visible, not until I was nearly assassinated. Gasps, shifts in chairs, but Jiro didn't move. "You're accusing me of corporate sabotage?" Jiro said, calm. Rue walked forward. "No, I'm accusing you of attempted murder. And I have proof." He dropped the file on the table. It landed with a sound that felt like thunder. The board erupted. Legal advisors demanded pauses, executives whispered, phones buzzed. But Rue never looked away from Jiro. "You used my own company to finance a bullet to my skull. And now you'll face every consequence you taught me to bury when I was too young to understand betrayal." I watched Jiro's fingers twitch. His mask cracked, but he didn't speak. Not until his eyes slid to me. "And what about her?" he said with venom. "The nurse you turned into your leash. How many laws have you broken to keep her by your side?" I stood. My voice was low, but it shook the silence like a scream. He didn't trap me. He let me in. Rue's eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, just long enough to soften. Then the room exploded again. Papers, threats, legal teams, but none of it mattered. Because by the time security arrived to remove Jiro, I saw it in Rue's face. He didn't feel vindicated. He looked hollow. Like exposing the monster didn't cleanse him of being made by one. That night, I found him alone in the glass atrium above the city, surrounded by nothing but silence and stars. No suit, no mask. Just a man trying to remember who he was before blood made him powerful. I sat beside him. He didn't look at me. "Do you think I'm still worth saving?" I didn't answer with words. I leaned in and touched my forehead to his. Just the smallest gesture, the gentlest answer. And he breathed in, like it was the first time oxygen meant anything in days. It started with one headline: "Billionaire CEO saved by secret lover." Then another: "Who is Lina Tran? Why Nakamura's angel could bring him down?" By noon, my name was everywhere, not Rue's, mine. Photos of me walking through hospital corridors, surveillance screenshots, even one of me holding a child's hand at a clinic years ago. The headlines blurred, but the message was clear. I was no longer invisible. In the tower, phones rang like alarms, PR teams scrambled, security doubled. And Rue, he barely blinked. "I knew they'd come for you the moment I put you beside me," he said. "I just didn't know it would feel this personal." I tried to smile. "Guess I'm officially part of your scandal now." But he didn't laugh. "You're not a scandal, Lina. You're the only truth in a room full of polished lies." By afternoon, a letter arrived at the front desk. No return address, no postage. Just my name, written in handwriting I hadn't seen in 6 years. Inside, a photo. Me, my mother, and a man I hadn't thought of since the day he left. My father. The letter was short. "I saw you on the news. We need to talk, before they twist everything worse than I already did. D." I didn't tell Rue, not at first. Because this wasn't about him. This was my ghost. The man who left when I was 16. The reason I worked 3 jobs. The reason I stopped believing in promises. And now he wanted a meeting? Just like that? I went. A cafe tucked between alleys near Meguro River. He sat alone, older, grayer, but those eyes, they still held the weight of everything he never said. "Lina," he whispered, "you look like your mother." I didn't sit. "Why now?" "Because you're in danger." He slid a folder across the table. "You're not the only one who saved a powerful man's life." I opened it. Inside, hospital records, photos, government seals. A man bleeding on a table. A file marked Black Project Revenant. "What is this?" He sighed. "A mistake we both inherited." I left before he could explain more. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because I realized something far worse than betrayal. This wasn't just Rue's story anymore. I had a past too, and someone was using. That night, I finally told him. Rue didn't speak at first. Then, I need to know what he gave you. Why? Because anyone with secrets about you has leverage over me. His words weren't angry. They were desperate. And that scared me more than anything. Rue didn't open the file right away. He stared at it for a long time, like it might bite him. Then finally, slow, deliberate, he turned each page. His face didn't change, but I could feel something shift in the room, like gravity, like silence turning violent. "This isn't just blackmail," he said. "It's a blueprint." Inside were photos taken from deep inside classified facilities, names of operatives, medical diagrams, and one document that made my heart drop. Subject ID, LT. Carrier, genetic variant, Class C. Adaptive rejection marker. Notes, untraceable response to synthetic toxin. Result, full immunity. Potential use in counter-bioengineering. Redacted, Project Revenant. Relation, subject connected to Nakamura protocols. Contain at all costs. "Lina," Rue whispered. "They weren't just after me." He looked up. "They were after you." I couldn't breathe. All my life I thought I was normal, a poor girl from a broken home who worked hard and stayed invisible. But what if I'd been watched, cataloged, even tested? And what if the only reason I'd survived that night I saved Rue was because of this? "You were immune," he said. "That's how you pulled me out of that car. That gas, it should have knocked out anyone within 30 feet, but you walked through it like it was nothing." Everything slowed down. I saw my childhood differently now. The sudden hospital visits. My mother's panic when I scraped my knee. The man in the black car always parked near our building. And my father's face when he walked away the last time. Not angry, afraid. "They'll come for you," Rue said. "They already are." He reached for my hand. Then we stopped them, together. But I hesitated, because now I wasn't just someone who loved him. I was a liability, a wild card in a war I didn't understand. "Rue, what if I'm not who you thought?" "Then you're exactly who I need." That night, we didn't sleep. We moved to the safe house under Nakamura Tower, one even I didn't know existed. Steel walls, bio-locked vaults, redundant backups, and silence carved like a bunker between lives. He paced. I watched. And somewhere in that stillness, he finally spoke. "My mother died in Project Revenant. They called it a medical error, but it was a cover. I always thought I survived the program alone." His voice cracked. "But maybe you were part of it too. And maybe fate put us on the same street, the same night, because it knew we were born from the same mistake." I stood up, took his hand. "We weren't born from a mistake, Rue. We're just the ones who get to end it." And in that moment, the distance between obsession and devotion dissolved. Not because he needed me, but because we both finally understood each other. Down to the bone, down to the secret, down to the war written into our blood. The facility was buried beneath a decommissioned power station near Chiba. No signs, no guards, just a forgotten elevator behind a rusted steel door hidden in the dark. But Rue had the code. Of course he did. "This is where my mother died," he said quietly. "It's where they kept her files, and mine." We descended in silence, 30 floors down. No windows, just walls of thick lead and a hum of static so dense it vibrated through bone. Inside, it didn't feel like a lab. It felt like a tomb. Cages, quarantine rooms, hallways lined with names scratched into paint. I scanned a nearby clipboard, dust-covered, cracked with age. Then one line caught my eye. Subject 02 Active. I turned to Ryu. There's someone still here. He froze. That's not possible. But the digital panel on the wall blinked once. Green. A heartbeat. We followed it. Down past a door marked Restricted, Lethal Protocols. My fingers shook as I reached for the handle. Ryu stopped me. Let me go first. But I didn't let go. Because whatever was on the other side, it was tied to both of us. And I needed to see it with my own eyes. The room was stark, cold, like a hospital that had forgotten it was ever meant to heal. In the center, a bed, and on it, her, a girl, no older than 19. Dark hair, IVs in both arms, oxygen mask. But her eyes opened when we stepped in, and she smiled. Ryu. He stepped back like he'd been punched. Who is she? I whispered. His voice was barely a breath. Her name is Hana. She's my sister. The floor disappeared beneath me. All this time, Ryu had never mentioned siblings. Never once. But now she lay before us, weak but alive. And her next words hit harder than any bullet. You finally brought her, she said, looking at me. The girl from the photos? Ryu's eyes snapped to mine. What photos? Hana smiled again, drowsy. The ones they showed me said she'd be my match, the perfect counterbalance. They said she was the only one who could keep me stable. Because we were made from the same pattern. I stepped back. Everything I thought I knew about Project Revenant, about my father, about Ryu, shattered in that single sentence. Because if she was made, and so was I, then none of this was an accident. Not the rescue, not the obsession, not even us. Ryu reached for me, but I pulled away. You knew about her, I whispered. I thought she died, he said. I never knew they kept her, not like this. And me? He hesitated. You were never part of the plan. That's why I couldn't let you go. The machines behind us beeped softly. Hana closed her eyes. And I realized something terrifying. She looked like me. Not exactly, but enough that if someone were watching from far away, they'd think we were sisters. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the facility, or Hana, or even Ryu, but because of the feeling I couldn't shake, like my life had never truly belonged to me. I called the one person who'd avoided me since the news broke, my father. I need the truth, I told him, all of it. No more riddles, no more shadows. There was a long pause. Then, come to the house, but come alone. The house I grew up in felt smaller now. The couch, the stairs, the photo of me at age 7 with missing front teeth and a Band-Aid on my temple. He handed me a box. Inside, records, vials, a faded key card stamped with the word, Revenant Subset 14, Lina Tron. I stared at it like it might catch fire. You enrolled me? No, he said softly. You were born into it. My knees went weak. What are you saying? He looked down, ashamed. You weren't supposed to survive the first test. None of the children did. Except 2. I didn't breathe. You and Hana, he continued. They thought the two of you would stabilize each other, like chemical opposites in one human formula. But when the program was shut down, they separated you, sent you to different regions, different families. I whispered, stunned. You adopted me? I stole you, he corrected. I couldn't let them take you again. My head spun. The childhood headaches, the sensitivity to light, the way I always felt watched when alone, they weren't random. They were side effects of being made. When I returned to the tower, Ryu was waiting at the entrance, not in his office, not in the penthouse. But downstairs, beside the staff elevator, eyes dark, coat damp from waiting too long in the cold. He walked toward me. Say it, he whispered. Say you hate me. Say this changes everything. I stepped close. You think I didn't already feel broken? I wasn't afraid of being someone else, Ryu. I was afraid that loving you was part of my programming. He reached up slowly, touched my face. It's not. You fight me at every turn. You question everything. You don't obey. You choose. That's not programming, Lina. That's love. I should have run, but I didn't. Because even if we were built from experiments, betrayal, and forgotten science, the way he looked at me wasn't synthetic. It was real. It was human. And in that moment, I chose him. Again. Hana was dying. We didn't say it out loud, but her pulse told the truth her smile tried to hide. The seizures had worsened. Her immunity was crashing. And there was only one thing that could save her. Protocol Zero. The original formula, the root of Project Revenant. Buried somewhere in the final vault beneath the now abandoned Shinomiya research wing. A place so sealed, even Nakamura Corp's most powerful people couldn't open it without triggering international alarms. Ryu looked at me. We go in tonight. We geared up in silence. Not in suits or gowns or elegance, but in black, head to toe, like ghosts. No entourage, no weapons, just trust, and something stronger than fear. Inside Shinomiya, the world was dead, walls rotting from time, lights flickering. But the deeper we went, the more intact it became, as if the heart of this place refused to rot like the rest. We passed doors labeled in code, EX03, SUB19, Final Cell. Then finally we reached it, Vault E. Fingerprint lock, retina scan, 2 passphrases spoken simultaneously. It recognized Ryu and me. The lock hissed open. Inside were shelves, not documents, serum. Dozens of vials, glowing faintly blue under ultraviolet lights. And one case marked, compatible with Subject 02 only, requires stabilizer from Subject 14. We both froze. What does it mean? I whispered. Ryu read the fine print. His hands trembled. It means you, your blood, your body. He couldn't say it, so I did. I'm the cure. I looked up at him. But not both of us, right? He clenched his fists. Don't say it. If you use me to save Hana, you die. The air between us broke. There has to be another way, he growled. I touched his chest, felt the rhythm I once saved, the same one I now loved more than my own. You've lost everything once. Don't lose her too. He shook his head. Don't make me choose between the 2 people who make me human. I smiled. You already chose. You became someone I could believe in. Let me do the same. We returned to the surface at dawn, the case in Ryu's hands. A silence between us heavier than death. I didn't tell Hana. I just held her hand as Ryu administered the serum. She smiled weakly, unaware, and I watched the monitor. Heartbeat steady, vitals rising. She would live, because I had something no one else in this war ever did. A choice. That night, Ryu sat beside my bed, hands stained with tears he never let fall. You saved me again, he whispered, but this time it broke me. I pulled him close, whispering against his skin, then break, because I'm still here. The news broke at sunrise. Harris nurse Lina Tran dies following medical complication linked to a legal biotech raid. CEO Nakamura refuses to comment. Sources confirm global investigation closed. Tokyo moved on. The world turned. And in the corner office of Nakamura Tower, a man with a frozen heart and bleeding hands stared out the window and stopped breathing every time he heard her name. Ryu buried me. Not in the ground, but in memory. He erased files, bought silence, rewrote documents. To protect me. To protect what was left of me. Hana lived. She walked again, laughed, touched sunlight without flinching. Ryu visited her daily. But every time she said Lina's name, he left the room. The tower changed too. He restructured the company, fired the corrupt, dismantled Revenant, donated its assets to medical relief programs under Lina's name. But he never smiled, not once, because part of him still sat in a chair beside a hospital bed, whispering, "Don't go," to someone who never promised to stay. 3 months passed. Then one night a letter arrived at his door, unmarked, handwritten. Inside, only 5 words. "You didn't lose me, yet." And a location, northern Finland, a clinic, a name, Dr. Eero Heikkinen, Neural Isolation Recovery Program. He boarded a plane that night. When he arrived, the snow was falling like silence. The facility was quiet, remote. Inside, white walls, slow piano music, clean air. And at the far end of the hall, a figure, curled near the window, hair longer, skin pale, a single IV in her arm. But when she turned, her eyes still held every fight, every goodbye, every second they never got to live. He stepped into the room, didn't speak. He couldn't. She looked at him like she had from the beginning, not like he was a monster, or a CEO, or a man built from ice and secrets, but like he was hers. "I didn't know if you'd come," she whispered. "I didn't know if I deserved to. You never needed to deserve me, Ryu. You just had to find me." He reached out slowly, touched her hand. Warm, alive, real. "You broke me," he said. "And now?" she asked. "Now I know what love is. No contracts, no obsessions, no more blood between them. Only breath, only time, only the promise of something neither of them had before. A life."